walking bundle of gratitude. I grew up in this great city, surrounded by academia, the arts, and a powerful wave of immigrant energy. That's me. Now we're cooking. Jolie Boathouse. I was working for a guy named Larry Soames, who had control of some downtown Boston city corners on Sunday morning selling newspapers. And he had a younger brother named Leon, was a sailor here. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to sail, take you sailing. And I came back and I learned how to sail here, and I became very good at it. And I spent a lot of time on the water in probably 1944, 45 in the summer.
And how did you afford the membership here?
25 cents a month is what it cost. It was great. And I think it still is very inexpensive, like $1 for the summer. This was designed for the kids to be able to come down here and very inexpensively get off the street and spend a summer on the river. We were just out there tooling around, having a good time.
Yeah.
It was great. This is what they call the shell. I think it was the hatch shell. Beautiful structure.
Did it look like this?
Yeah, yeah. There were free concerts here all through the summer, conducted by Arthur Fiedler, very famous Boston Pops conductor. And we'd sit out here on the lawn. You could rent a chair for 10 cents or sit on the grass. We came here often because it's walking distance from home, maybe 15, 20-minute walk from home, and it was free. So we came here and we sat down and listened to concerts. Arthur Fiedler. I worked with him later. I think it must have been around 1974 when Michael Dukakis ran for governor. And I was the master of ceremonies at the inauguration ball. And Fiedler was playing with the orchestra. So he and I had to interact with the choice of music and the program of events. He was a tough guy.
You said you worked here setting up chairs.
Yeah.
How old were you when you did that?
Probably 11, 12. There were hundreds of chairs out here that had been rented, and people left and left the chairs. So the job was to help stack the chairs. Took 2 hours. They paid $2. Finished late, probably close to midnight. And walking home, we were on Cambridge Street, my friend and I. And here come my folks. My mom and dad looking for us, your grandmother and grandfather. My mother said, where have you been? I said, we were stacking the chairs. She said, this late? And I said, well, yeah, we just finished. And I handed her the $2. My father grabbed it out of her hand and tore the $2 in pieces and threw it on the ground. He was so angry because she was upset, and that upset him. He couldn't take it. So she picked up the torn pieces. She wasn't going to let the $2 go just because he was upset. We walked home in silence. The neighborhood was called the West End, a tenement area populated by immigrants, approximately 65% Italian, 30% Jews, living side by side, identifiable by the smell of the cooking as you walked up the stairs. The West End was very valuable property. Valuable because you had beautiful river views, the walking distance to downtown Boston. The people that were living there were not paying big rents and they were not paying big taxes. So somebody got the idea they could make a lot more money by tearing it all down and building expensive condo high-rises and so forth. So they took it over by eminent domain, and that's why we all got pushed out.
So this whole area here was West End,
right?
Your neighborhood, all riverfront property.
Yeah.
And now, which is why they took it over for urban development.
Very valuable property. Not only is it riverfront, well, you got the river, the Charles River right behind you here, but on the other side, you walk about 8 or 10 minutes, you're in downtown Boston.
which is why they took it over for urban renewal.
That's why somebody wanted it.
So you had Mass General here, and then there were apartment buildings here.
Yeah, the Charles Bank homes were right here.
And then Peabody Playhouse was
right
just
over
up
here.
the street.
Right over here.
So you could walk there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
When was your first experience there? That's where you started acting.
I went to play basketball first, and then I discovered that there was a science lab, which was very interesting, and a beautiful theater, and about a 375-seat, very traditional theater, proscenium with a beautiful curtain and balcony, footlights still,
Right.
the old footlights that they used to use.
And you had your first role there in Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, 1930, 39.
39.
Yeah.
Right.
So around 1947 or 8, a friend said, a friend who I had done some acting with, some little theater with him, he said, they're looking for somebody like you. They're doing a play at the Peabody House. Go see a guy named Boris Segal. So I went and I got the job. Pretty easy, there was no competition.
Yeah.
You want to do this? Yeah, okay, you got it. So we did Awaken and Sing, and that was the first time that I was ever in a really serious adult play. Stuff before that was kind of lightweight, some musical stuff and children's theater. But this was the first time directed by a very serious director with an adult cast that was a pretty good cast, people who had done some work. And I really was deeply affected by it. This is the West End house. I'm surprised this is still here. I thought it was gone. It's evidently not part of the Mass General Hospital, but it was not at that time when I was living here. And it was a major sports program here. And for a little while, I was the manager of the basketball team here. My job was to call basketball team managers in the region and arrange games. I had a major experience here having to do with my acting training. I was acting in a play, several plays actually, but a particular play directed by Elliot Silverstein. Elliot was a student at Boston College in the drama department. And he invited the head of the department, this was a Jesuit school, Father John Bond, to come and see the play, which he did. Came to the dressing room afterward, was shaking hands all around. He said, "What are you doing this summer?" I said, "I don't have any plans." He said, "Well, you do now." And he said, "I want you to come to school at BC for the summer theater program." And he said, "I can give you a half scholarship." The full program cost $75. So he okayed me for $37.50. I came here to talk to Jack Burns, who was head of this place, running this place. And he came up with West End House money for the other $37.50 to pay for me to go to school at BC. One of the greatest experiences of my life. The priest coming backstage, head of the drama department at BC, acknowledging me, gave me some sense that I was doing something I had a talent for, that I was capable. And I had that kind of help here. This city was great for me that way.
The only buildings that were left remaining in the West End were the Old West Church, where Kennedy cast his ballot in the 1960 campaign, the Otis House, designed by Charles Bulfinch in the 18th century, the Charles Street Jail, which is now the Liberty Hotel where we're staying.
Exactly,
And the St. Joseph's Church.
Oh yeah, the church. I passed by that church almost every day of my life.
So here we are, Chambers Street.
Chambers Street.
Looking down the street at where you used to live.
That's what's there now. That's it, 87 Chambers Street. There were 6 of us in this apartment. 1 bathroom.
For 23 years we lived with our in-laws.
With my father and mother.
It was a 3-family house, so they lived in the 2nd floor. We lived with them for 23 years.
And after that,
Then after that we moved upstairs to the 3rd floor. And we lived down there from 1947 to 1959.
When they took the everything by eminent domain, you know, in Boston, all the houses where we lived, they took our house too. Life wasn't easy, Adam, but we never thought about it. We were young and we could tolerate it.
We lived here, all of us, and then Mom and Dad and Mel and I moved up to here, and Grandpa and Grandpa stayed here.
And this is what they have right where we're standing.
That's what's there now, yeah. These were perfectly good buildings, great apartments, in a great neighborhood. They tore it all down. My folks, I think, were paying $38 a month for their apartment. And they said, we're going to move you out temporarily, going to build these nice places, replace all these old buildings with new buildings. You'll move back in. You'll move back in if you can pay $400 or $500 a month. This was a very strong neighborhood in a sense of community. Heavy immigration. We all got along. It was a common feeling of trying to make it in America. It was all walk-up apartments. There was one building, maybe 4 or 5 buildings away from us, that had an elevator. But it was a very strong religious neighborhood for both Jews and Catholics.
And you said that your grandfather came first to Boston?
Yeah, he came first before the First World War. And that was a tradition in immigrant families. One of the elder guys would come first, get a job, and send back part of their income every week to save up the money to bring the rest of the family over from Europe.
That was in 1923. I came to New York.
Okay.
I stood in New York about 3 months. Then I went to Boston.
You had relatives?
Because I had relatives, cousins. And they were barbers too, and they had a barber shop. So I came to Boston and I started to work for them.
3 doors away from us was a synagogue that we went to for quite a while. Then we switched to North Russell Street.
So tell me about your mother's frugality.
My mom, your grandmother, was very tight with the money. Dad made a living. He worked hard 6 days a week. And with the two of them, him and my grandfather, income, we did okay. But she was so careful with money. Well, when I was a little kid, it was time for a formal portrait in a studio. So she made me a shirt, a little white shirt with a Lord Fauntleroy collar and pants.
Yeah.
And then she went to a store and bought me a pair of patent leather black shoes. She came to the studio, took me to the studio, the shoes were in a box, sat me down on a hope chest for the photographer to shoot me, took the shoes out of the box, put the shoes on me, stepped out of the picture, the photographer took the picture, she stepped in, took the shoes off me, put them back in the box, and returned them to the store. Those shoes never touched the floor. This is the Boston Common.
And so you were selling newspapers in the Common when you were like 10 years old?
A friend explained to me that you could go downtown here to one of the newspaper publishing houses on a Sunday. They published a tabloid called the Record. It sold for, I think, 3 cents. You could buy 10 of them for maybe half that price, and then come here in the Boston Common and sell them. And you yell the headline, and people would be sitting on the benches or walking through, and they'd buy the paper, maybe make a quarter or 35 cents for yourself, and go home. So we're out here one day, and we pick up our papers. We walk in here into the park, yelling the headline like we always did. Japs attack Pearl Harbor. It was December 7th, 1941. Had no idea where Pearl Harbor was or what it was all about. Papers are going great. Great, easy, wow. 25 papers gone. Let's go get some more. We went and bought another 25 papers. Gone. And when we got done, we walked over the hill, over Beacon Hill, into the West End and went home. I miss Boston. Boston's a good place to be. People were good to me here. I got off to a good start in Boston. This is the corner of Boylston and Washington Street.
So you were here selling papers. How old were you then?
13.
13.
I spent time working here at this corner in front of the subway entrance, probably around 1944. It was a very busy newspaper corner. My grandfather, Sam Spinner, worked in that building across the street. It was a leather luggage manufacturing company, and once in a while, as a treat, he would take me to lunch. I'd meet him here, right on that corner, and we'd walk down to the Essex Delicatessen and get a pastrami sandwich on a roll. It was a great treat for me. And down behind us is Chinatown, where we used to walk to with the family sometimes on a Sunday night and get a Chinese meal.
All right, let's take a look at some more.
All right.
The only thing that separated the West End from Beacon Hill was Cambridge.
Cambridge Street. For us, it was considered very ritzy up here. This was very wealthy people. People like the Cabots and the Lodges lived up here. And they used to say, Boston, the home of the bean and the cod, where the Cabots speak only to the Lodges, and the Lodges speak only to God. This is an interesting spot. We're at the corner of Joy and Mount Vernon, at the top of Beacon Hill, and we sold newspapers on that corner right there.
And how old were you when you were delivering newspapers here?
We started on the Boston Common when I was 10, so maybe when I was 11. We were up here, we moved our way up the hill onto Beacon Hill to sell papers, yeah.
All right, so here we are, Sam Golliv's card shop.
Sam Golliv's card shop. It was a personal card shop, was the name of it.
What happened here?
I needed a job. My folks said to me, go talk to Sam Golliv. He might have a job for you. I introduced myself. I said, I need a job. He said, come with me.
How long did you work here?
I worked here probably for about a year after school, afternoons and Saturdays.
Now, was this while you were selling newspapers?
No, this was after newspapers and before vacuum cleaners.
Oh, okay. You kept yourself busy.
Yeah. During the Second World War. Greeting cards was a big deal because there were so many people away in the service. Mail was a major way of communication, so people sent greeting cards. The place would be jammed coming up to Christmas. And we used to do imprints with your name, you know, so people would order 50 or 100 cards with their names on them to send out to relatives and friends. There was an attorney here that helped me. Nice guy. He was the judge in the declamation contest, and he helped me pick a piece of material, and I won the declamation contest at the West End House. And there was a camera shop right here that I worked in. I got fired. I was no good. The last job that I had before leaving Boston, I was selling vacuum cleaners on Boylston Street. Where it says Bento Express was the Ace Vacuum, right there. This would have been 1948 and into 49.
So you were like 17 or 18?
Yeah. Ace Vacuum was a kind of a scuzzy operation. I learned a few interesting lessons. They ran what they called a bait and switch operation. They would advertise a used Electrolux vacuum cleaner, which was a famous name, for $9 or $10. And the job was to sell upward. You got one for a sample to show, don't sell it. The machine you want to sell cost about $100. So it took a certain amount of confidence and salesmanship. It was useful later in going on some of the acting auditions that I went on and found myself in competition where I had to sell myself. So I had some sense of confidence. It was helpful. Did fairly well, saved up money from selling vacuum cleaners, sent $600 to the Pasadena Playhouse School of the Theater for my first year's tuition, bought a train ticket for $100, had about 50 left over in my pocket, and I went to South Station and took off. Here we are, South Station. Get on the train, go to California, go west, young man. So this is South Station, September 1949. This was goodbye, leaving Boston. I was 18, and I was signed up to go to school in Pasadena, California. When it was time, I walked out on the platform, got on the train took off, and that was the end of Boston for a long time. I think it was called the 20th Century Limited or something like that. And then I got on a train called the Super Chief to Los Angeles. And I got off at Pasadena train station and started walking towards the school with my suitcase.
Right.
Wearing the blue double-breasted suit that Mom bought me at Filing's basement. So I'm walking down the streets of Pasadena on a hot September day, sweat pouring. I'm wearing a wool suit, a hand-painted tie, and suede shoes. I must have looked like somebody just arrived off the boat from Transylvania.
Did you call them when you got to Pasadena?
No, you didn't use the phone. No, that was expensive, no. You sent a postcard for 3 cents. South Station. Okay, this is 87 Chambers Street, where I lived until I left Boston. We lived upstairs here, and this was my grandmother, your great-grandmother, Sarah. She spoke no English. And I can't imagine what the conversation was because this lady was Irish. I don't think she spoke any Yiddish. These photographs were done by Jules Aaron, who photographed the entire neighborhood as a documentary in stills. We lived up on the 3rd floor with her and her husband, my grandfather, your great-grandfather, and my mom and dad and my brother and I.
And you said that you shared a room with Uncle Mel.
Not only a room, we shared a bed for the first 17 years of my life. Yeah.
All right, great.
That's the way it was. Causeway Street, my dad's barber shop was right there. This is Tabachnik, famous West End character, a great tenor, cantorial tenor. He could sing, he had a voice that would fill the West End. Al Tabachnik. Nobody ever called him Al. It was Tabachnik. A very good photograph of the neighborhood, the West End.
This neighborhood was full of life. 2,700 families, over 7,000 people had their lives uprooted by this urban renewal or slum clearance project. They took it down because of its prime central location, its nearness to everything. Mass General Hospital, North Station, Charles River, Theater and Financial and Business District. It was prime real estate property just waiting to be developed. And boy, did they develop it.
This is on the lawn, the river behind us. That's me and some of my buddies in the mid-40s.
What did they call you?
Lenny.
When you came to LA, one of the first things you were working on was losing your Boston accent.
I didn't realize how strongly Boston I sounded, but I had it. I had that Boston sound.
And what about when you came back to Boston in the early 50s with Kid Monk Baroni? I mean, you had your name up on the marquee at the Bowdoin Theater. Didn't it give you a sense of triumph or satisfaction to come home that way?
It gave me the sense that I could do this work. My reviews were pretty good. I did not get an avalanche of work after the film was released because the film just kind of disappeared. Nobody saw it. But it gave me the confidence that I could do the job.
Right. And what about when you came back during the Star Trek years?
Yeah, that was kind of exciting and a little difficult. People were following me on the street. And I didn't really want people to know where I was living. I was staying with my folks, with your grandparents, in Dorchester by that time. And one time, I was walking on Blue Hill Avenue near where they lived, and I realized that I was being followed. And I started ducking down various streets because I wanted to get to the apartment, but I did not want to lead them to the apartment.
Right.
No way. I got in the apartment, I thought, clear, home, free, knock, knock, knock on the door.
Right.
And my mother says, there's some people here want to talk to you. I said, Mom, tell them I'm not here. Yeah. She couldn't do that. No, that's not nice. You go talk to them.
Well, how did they react when they saw your haircut?
My dad actually thought I was wearing a wig. He had a picture of me as Spock up on the wall in the barber shop, and kids would come in and say, I want a Spock haircut. And they didn't have any idea what Star Trek was. They didn't get it. All they knew was something had happened.
And I remember, though, that they both, even though they didn't really understand what Star Trek was all about, they both sort of basked in the warmth of the attention that you were getting.
They did. And I'm glad they did. It was wonderful for them to have that kind of pleasure. But they didn't quite understand why it was all happening. Right. They just knew that something was happening.
You know, I still get a kick out of the situations where, like, we were taking that duck tour the other day, and we're driving all over town, and the guy's talking about John Hancock, John Adams, Sam Adams, Paul Revere, and when we pass by the West End, Leonard Nimoy.
I'm very touched by being in Boston in general. I love being here. I have a great load of nostalgia that I carry around with me all the time. I lived so much in the past, because it was such a meaningful and enriching life here, with the academia and the theater, the arts, and so forth. Coming back here for whatever, for visit, for work, is always a great thrill. I first stepped on stage when I was 8 years old at 357 Charles Street, the Elizabeth Peabody Playhouse. It was a community settlement house which was created to help immigrants find their way into the culture in California. I drove a taxi at night so that I could be available for auditions during the day. One night I picked up Jack Kennedy at the Bel Air Hotel. Yes, that Jack Kennedy, the senator from Massachusetts at the time and future president. We chatted about careers, politics, and show business. And we agreed that both had a lot in common, maybe too much in common. He said, lots of competition in your business, just like mine. And then he gave me this. Just remember, there's always room for one more good one. Words to live by. And then came Mr. Spock in 1966. It took 15 years, but I was ready. I was on my game. Spock called for exactly the kind of work I was prepared to do. He was a character with a rich and dynamic inner life, half human, half Vulcan. He was the embodiment of the outsider, like the immigrants who surrounded me in my early years. How do you find your way as the alien in a foreign culture? You are the creators and the curators of your own lives. You create your own life and your work. Give us your best. Give us the best of your art. We crave it. We hunger for it. And of course, I cannot leave without saying to you, in all sincerity, live long and prosper.
Leonard S. Nimoy, actor, writer, director, photographer, and friend, Boston University is proud to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.